It's AFA Today on AFR Talk, and it's Kevin McCullough, and a live shot there if you're watching on the AFA channel. That's the Wall Street Bull, the Charging Bull. It's not more than 200 feet from the front steps of the building I'm in, bringing you AFA Today. And so thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of the movement for clarity every day. What we seek to do is obliterate confusion, amplify truth, and pursue clarity. That's all we try to do. We just want to obliterate confusion, amplify truth, pursue clarity. And as we do that, we're going to see our lives change. We're going to see the lives of our kids change, our families, our churches, our communities, and hopefully our nation. And good on Monica Cole and 1 Million Moms. They were just, we went to break, and she was immediately on the whole profanity thing, which brings us to the story that we're talking about. Because in Florida, Duval County is actually the Jacksonville, Florida is the city, but Duval County is the school district. And the Ribault High School is telling a teacher that she's going to be facing termination because she used profanity and directed it at her students. And, this tells you how jaded I am. Because I live in a world where it's inescapable. This is, you hear it walking down the street, you hear it in the grocery store, you hear it, on the, you pull up to the stoplight and the car comes up, jumpa, and you have to bleep out a bunch of the stuff. And it's all, we just live in this profane sewer-like cesspool now when it comes to language. And here's a school district that said, no, you're not going to talk to our kids that way, and we're going to fire you. I was shocked by it. I don't know. I mean, does she deserve to lose her job outright? Because if this is the first time that this has been the case, then maybe they could have done something else. But I'm curious if you've run across issues of profanity in your own children's school or school situation or teachers or so forth. It is an interesting thing when you work in a mixed environment. And I work, a lot of my day is spent with people in media. Some are believers, some aren't. And so they're kind of all over the spectrum. And every now and then someone who's not a believer will say in front of someone who is something that's, off color, profane. And it's just an interesting dynamic. You see what they're responding and how they're responding. And it's just, this has become the sin that nobody cares about anymore. I mean, if you measured society and you went and you talked to people, one-to-one on the street, and you said, what are the things that really bother you? What's the actions of immorality that really bother you? No one ever says swearing. Nobody ever says cursing. Nobody ever says using profane language. There's a lot of other things that bother people, like being intolerant. That's the big crime. That's the one that'll give you, the huge super long prison stay if you commit that. But nobody says anything about the use of profanity. But here, this Jacksonville, Florida school system said to this woman, who I'm not exactly sure. I believe she's African American, and she used the N word at one child. She used the F word a few times. She said some other things, and she's just talking. She's just talking like she does at home. I mean, out of the abundance of the heart, what the mouth speaks, right? So that's where all that comes from. But at the end of the day. They said, no, this isn't good. This isn't good for our classroom, and we're not going to tolerate it. So she may be on her way out. But do you have kids in school? Have you dealt with this issue? Have there been situations where you've had to confront profanity that was being done in front of children? It's one of the reasons why I don't like to take my kids out with me when I run errands, because at 3 and 1, they're starting to repeat everything. Though the 3-year-old repeats everything, and the 1-year-old repeats the 3-year-old. So it's kind of like you don't really have a winning combination if they come into contact with something in their little innocent psyche that's bad. So when I got to be running around town and going in and out of stores and stuff, I just try to not bring them with me. Maybe that's naive on my part. I don't know. Let's take your calls, 888-589-8840. But I'm curious as to how you would deal with such a thing in your situation. Let's talk to Shirla, who's calling from Texas. Hi, Shirla. Welcome. You're on with Kevin McCullough. Glad you're here.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a comment about, I think that the teacher should be fired because I think there's a huge difference between, your personal life and professional. And as a teacher, you're a professional. I don't think I would ever go into a grocery store or any type of business establishment for that fact and tolerate being cursed out by a worker. And in essence, she is a worker. In essence, she's serving those children. And when you're in a working environment, you have to remain professional at all times, irregardless to what you do at home and on a personal level. That should never cross lines. And it's just it's bad and poor judgment for her as a teacher. You're supposed to be a person that the children can mimic, that they can, alter their life after and to be cursing them out.
Be an example of sorts.
Exactly. That's outlandish. As a parent, I've never had that happen, but I would definitely be livid, and I probably would not stop until she was like, I don't think a reprimand is anything that should be done. She's not a kid that you say, you know what, oh, okay, don't say that. She's an adult. She knows. She went through college.
Well, Charlotte, now here's the thing, and this is I'm just telling you what the other side would say. You say that, and that must mean that you don't have an appreciation for the struggle of the inner city woman and where she's come from, and there's this intolerance on your part to accept, the flaws and the mistakes of other people, and therefore, you're a bigot because you think that people should talk like you.
Of course, I have a problem with the struggle of the inner city woman, and I was that inner city woman brought up from nothing with 6 kids in the middle of the projects or whatever. Yeah, that was me. So yeah, problem with that. No, not at all. Regardless to how you're brought up, you can change your situation. You don't have to continue
absolutely
the same cycle. That's just craziness within itself. So no, I would not go with that at all. I was brought up a certain way. I went to college. You learn a respect for people, irregardless to what you feel about them, how you feel they're brought up or whatever. And especially when you take an oath to become a teacher, a high school teacher at that, there are those students that will definitely cross the line and things. But when you take that oath, that's just something that you have to deal with. I mean, I'm a medical professional.
Well, what I like about what you said, Cheryl, was the first thing that you said that said, she really works for the families of that community. Those are the people that pay her salary. And This is not the way you treat clients. This is not the way you treat customers. This is not the way you treat the people that your business is dependent upon. And especially in the public space. I mean, she's a public servant. She works at the behest and for the betterment of the community. And if the community decides this isn't the best way to teach our kids, I think they're totally within their right to canter.
100%. I do believe that. I think some teachers forget when they're teaching the children that this is a job you're getting paid for. You have been selected to do a particular service, and you should do that regardless of whatever is going on. And I think sometimes they forget because they're dealing with these kids, and some of them are frustrated and maybe should be in a different profession. But you definitely have to keep calm, and you have to be an example, especially.
All right, Shirla. Good stuff, man. Thanks for calling. You call anytime. I call you a binge thinker, which we need a few more of in this society today. 888-589-8840, 888-589-8840. What we're talking about is Ribault High School in Jacksonville, Florida. They have basically investigated a teacher who was using a surprising amount of profanity with her students. Instead of just saying, why didn't you bring your pencil to class when the student didn't bring it, she says, what is the point in coming to the mother blank class if you don't bring your materials? She sounds like a lot of athletic coaches, to be candid with you. The kind that get in your face and yell at you, you're not worth anything. You're just a stupid dude. You got prove me wrong. And it's the challenge to try to, create that competitive part of you to step up and to I'll show you. I'll bring my pencil next time. Kind of that reverse psychology thing. But I don't know if that was what she was doing. I'm not. And I got to admit, I'm surprised, pleasantly surprised, that the school district said, hey, we think this is bad enough that it should endanger your job. 888-589-8840. Now, again, I haven't heard from the teachers' unions yet. I'm sure that they're rolling buses down there to hold some sort of sit-in and be like, how dare you tell our teacher that she's not going to get to work here because she used a bad word. But I'm pleasantly surprised. I wish I wasn't pleasantly surprised. I wish I would just be like, yeah, that's what should have happened without any question. But in our day and age, profanity is so saturated into every corner of life in America. You know when it's bad? When you're messing around in the church parking lot late on a Sunday after worship services are over, and you hear some of the kids from the youth group come out, and they're just saying stuff out of their mouth that's just like the stuff that you hear in the other places. And you're like, where's the disconnect here? What's going on in our country? To be candid, I've heard some church kids with some of the worst mouths I've ever heard, and that's frightening to me, because you think, well, at least church kids, they're getting the gospel once a week. 888-589-8840. But have you ever had a teacher or someone that has impacted your students or been near your kids that have had a cursing problem? And how was it dealt with? 888-589-8840. Let's talk to James calling from Virginia. Hi, James. Welcome. You're on with Kevin McCullough. So glad you're here.
Hey, Kevin. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking.
I think you ought to add common sense to your qualities for your radio show.
Well, we try to have that in abundance, but sometimes I feel like it's just the sense that is no longer common. Sometimes I feel like I'm some sort of weird space Martian for some of the things that I suggest, but to me, they just make sense.
Well, yeah, it does. And there's a lot of us out there that think that way. But
good.
I work with the public in a transportation setting, so certainly if any of
well, then you never hear any cursing, I'm sure. You just have a pristine stream of audio coming at you all day, I'm positive.
I got a bridge in New York, I'll tell you, if you believe that. Well, what I have is I encounter the younger group a lot, and I'm a white man, and occasionally I'll have young black children or kids, teenagers, and they will let out with cuss words, and then they immediately realize that I'm here, and then they apologize. But what I try to do when I encounter that with them is I try to educate them on how disrespectful that language is to not only themselves but the other people.
Right.
And the one word that they use a lot is that N-word when they're talking about each other.
Right.
And they kept apologizing, and finally when I got where I was going, I stopped her for a second. I said, sweetheart, let me tell you something. You use that word, and you mean it not in disrespect to your other person that you're using it for. That's just language that you use. But let me tell you, how can you expect someone else to respect you and not say that word or call you that word if you're readily using it in general conversation?
What'd they say when you said that?
She said, you're right. And I said, let me tell you something. My two children have heard that word, and the first time one of them let out with that word, he got some soap. And they've never said it before. That is just an ugly, disrespectful word. And I said, but if you accomplish all that with your language and the cussing, it begs the don't respect me. I don't respect myself. That's why I use this language.
Well, it seems like, James, you were the right man in the right place for those young girls, and I hope that was a lesson that took root in their heart. 888-589-8840. Let's talk to Jenny in Ohio. Hi, Jenny. Welcome. You're on with Kevin McCullough. So glad you're here.
How are you?
I'm good.
Hello?
Thanks for asking. What's your thought on this?
Oh, good. Be patient with me. I just had mouth surgery done today.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
But the everything's backwards anymore. When I was going to school, we had prayer, and if any of our teachers ever cussed at us, they would have been gone. Now, today's society, the children, I've heard 2 or 3-year-old little kids walking down the street. You F an N word, I mean, F this, GD that. I'm like, are you kidding me? I went out and talked with these kids that was using the language.
What did you say to
We're
him?
going to go tell our effing mom. I said, oh, please do have them come down. I'll be more than happy to talk with them.
Did you have a chance to talk with their mom?
No, they wouldn't come down and speak with me. That's okay, though. I keep focusing on the children because obviously the parents don't care. And, they're worried about the teacher in school cussing. What about the parents? The parents are worse. It's got to begin at home. If you don't want your teachers cussing at the kids, don't do it at home. I've seen them, and many times I've seen parents come down and say, why is your teacher cussing in front of my kids, or why is your teacher this? And they're doing it all along. It's like, okay, Lord, excuse me, something's wrong here. And profanity, I don't allow it in my house. I have no friends because I've asked them not to use the Lord's name in my home. I asked them not to use the F word in my home. Well, they do. The minute they walk in, they start. It's like on purpose. It's like, okay, you need to go. I don't.
Well, Jenny,
need you.
I'm sorry about that. And taking a stand for what is right it always comes with a bit of a price, and it's discouraging. But here's a question as we go into our last little bit of time together. What kind of price is culture paying for the advancement of cursing? Let's talk about that philosophically. What kind of price is society paying because cursing is no longer a sin that's really noticed or enforced in terms of having consequences? 888-589-8840. I'm Kevin McCullough. This is AFA Today on AFR Talk.